Hit the shower, grab your coffee, and get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Uczen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week, all before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from 12:50 a.m. and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
How we doing, folks? How we doing? Like the big voice lady just said, it is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 12:50 a.m. and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I am Charlie Uczen. Back on the other side of the glass, there's my guy, Jack Pembroke. Last week we had Tommy Wirtz on the show, and he did fine, I guess. He's all right.
We like that guy.
We like him, I guess. But now I get my guy, Jack Pembroke, the Wisconsin Warlock, back on air with me. Jack, how was your week this week, my man?
It was good. Got to bump into you. We didn't get to see you, but we worked the same event.
You heard me. Yeah,
I heard you.
You
did great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You kept the glue for the show together.
So if you guys weren't listening to The Fan earlier this week, at the end of last week, we were on the road for the first few days of the week with Sparky Pfeiffer, Mitch Thunder Nellis. Tommy Wirtz was on the road with the leadoff show, out at different bars as we get close to the end of the Brewers season here. For the rest of the year, as we try to get this on the road going a little bit more, as we try to get the Fan on the road a little bit more. We're going to be out before some of these home Brewers games, so stay tuned for more information on that, which bars we're going to be at. This past week, we were at places like Stenny's, both in Lake Country and in Milwaukee. Kelly's Bleachers was last Friday. A lot of awesome places that have a lot of awesome drink specials, Sun Cruiser, iced tea, vodka cocktails that they are selling at all these places that the Fan is out here supporting. Taste delicious. Go and try those out a little bit and come visit the Fan out and about. Also going to be out and about if you want to meet the team behind Wisconsin Sports Daily on the Fan, which is from 2 to 5 here on the Fan. You can find Steve Sparky Pfeiffer next Friday out at Rally House. He'll be live in person from 2 to 5 p.m., like I said, and they're going to help you gear up for the Packers home opener game on Sunday, September 7th. The Fan will even be registering people to win a $250 Rally House gift card too. Sparky will see you at the Rally House next Friday afternoon. So if you want to hear that, if you want to be out with the Fan like that, you can go join them out there. Here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, we have a great show lined up for you guys today. At 9:20, we're going to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers taking down the Toronto Blue Jays last night, 7-2, and what we should expect from this potential World Series matchup moving forward here. Since we had some big breaking news for the Green Bay Packers, we did not have On the Green yesterday, so no On the Green at 9:40, but me and Jack will be diving into some fantasy football, talk about which Packers you should want to take in your fantasy football drafts, some other just hints, tips that I know Wisconsin Warlock has over there because he's a fantasy
got a couple.
guru.
I'm a fantasy gremlin.
That's what I've heard, is a fantasy gremlin, fantasy guru over there, so I know we can get some good stuff out of him. At 10 o'clock today, we're going to have Ryan Wentland, friend of the show, been on a couple times here. He co-hosts the Pack the Brew podcast. He's going to join us on video on YouTube. So if you want to see his lovely face, you can join us on YouTube at The Fan Milwaukee, where we are currently live streaming. You can also text, comment on any of the topics that we talk about today over on the YouTube as well, along with all our social medias at The Fan Milwaukee on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to reach out to us, we'll have it on there. You can also hit us up on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, that's 414-677-1250 to get on the show that way as well. But again, at 10 o'clock, we got Ryan Wentland to talk about some of the big Packers news that happened over the past couple of days, and also to break down this series for the Milwaukee Brewers. We get a little double duty with Ryan. That's why I love having him on. He can help talk about a multitude of things here in Wisconsin sports. At 10:20, we got Mount Pixmore, where me and Tommy did all right last week. We both had a little bit of a crappy pick, and then we both had some pretty good picks. So you know what? We evened out a little bit. And yesterday, I blamed it all on Tommy. I shouldn't have done that. It was my fault a little bit, too. I had probably a worse pick than he had in this one. So we'll get into that at 10:20. At 10:40, we'll close the show with the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl, as always. But to open up the show, I think the same topic that everybody expected almost every Wisconsin sports show this weekend to be talking about, but the Green Bay Packers have traded Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks for Dallas Cowboys edge rusher Micah Parsons, one of the best young players in the league. And if you guys haven't heard this, then you must be living under a rock, because this has been, again, the only thing anybody has been talking about for the past couple of days here, Jack.
The only thing that makes me think this is real is I'm not in 2000 opening up a gateway computer and getting onto Madden on my computer, Ultimate Team, and basically putting it on easy mode and tricking the computer into trading me all the best Dallas Cowboys players. It's what I used to do because the Cowboys made me cry a lot as a child in the 90s. But wow, Charlie, well, you were here. I called right in as soon as I saw it. I waited because there were so many things that I saw for the first 10 minutes on Twitter, and I was like, oh man, Charlie and I have a good thing going here. I'm not trying to tweet them and be like, oh, great, that was a burner account and fake, and that didn't happen. So I'm in the car. I'm near cops. I had to pull in. I had to pinch myself a couple times. I had to turn you guys on to make sure, okay, is this someone, playing a prank on me? Is this real? It makes me, as an unbiased Packer fan, feel like this is a Super Bowl defense, at least.
Well, and I don't think you have to be an unbiased Packers fan to say that. I'm an unbiased Bears fan, and I'll say that, yeah, this makes it a Super Bowl caliber defense. I think there's a lot of people. Cam Newton was talking about it yesterday on First Take, how he's like, we still have to see how this works out on the field. And I understand from that point, yes. But also just on paper, yes, he makes this a Super Bowl defense. And I don't know why that is so hard to convince some people of. I don't know if they're just trying to be difficult, but Micah Parsons is that good of a player.
I had people writing me on Facebook or Instagram saying, hey, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, why this is good. I like Kenny Clark. And sure, I liked Kenny Clark too. It's Kenny Clark is on the wrong side of 30. He hasn't played up to his potential, whether it's, being knocked for a couple injuries. I love Kenny Clark. Great D lineman.
Great leader for the organization.
Yeah. And great person. I think he was up a ton of years for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So hats off to him. I know he'll be missed in Green Bay, but you get younger. You get a 26-year-old for a deal that's going to be 5 years on average, 42 point something a year. I used to hate on Gutekunst about issues on certain draft picks where it's like, what were you thinking? You could have had Terry McLaurin, but this washes away all of the cardinal sins I thought he had committed as a GM. I can't say anything bad about him. You've done the impossible,
right?
Almost. It does feel like when I called in on the show when it happened, I said, it reminds me, I'm old enough to remember watching Reggie White play for the Packers. And when people are like, oh, this guy back then was amazing, people just say, oh, they played with janitors or other stuff like that. No, Reggie White was a one-man wrecking crew. And that's what I think Micah can bring to this team is now you have to shift the line to his side. You have to, tell a guard or a tackle, hey, we're going to double team him for the majority of the game. And that hopefully, as a fan to me says, okay, Rashawn Gary's going to open up at least 10 or 11 sacks this year. He's finally going to get his first double digit, sack season. It's going to open up lanes for Luke Van Ness, which, he's got to show me something now too, because now you have this elite defensive player that you get to match up with a young Edrin Cooper, who we call Baby Ray Lewis all the time on this show. You get a guy from the Chargers who I think people aren't talking about enough. I believe his last name is Niemann or
Nick Niemann.
Niemann. Thank you. I think he can be deadly for us too. So the defense, the front seven at least, got younger, got better. And people are complaining like, oh, we might have overpaid too much. I don't think so. To just ask 2 first rounders and get Micah Parsons and a player trade, man, that is, I hate this term because it's overused, but that is 4-dimensional chess. That is.
I mean, if you compare this, and this is what everybody's comparing it to the Khalil Mack trade that the Bears did, where they got Khalil Mack and a 2nd-round pick for 2 firsts, a 3rd, and a 5th, I feel like this is pretty equal value. And I don't think people really understand how much of an impact Khalil Mack had on that Bears defense that first year, at least. And yeah, he dealt with some injuries. The offense was abysmal, like every year that he was there. But when you talk about the effect that Khalil Mack had on that team, I mean, he got them one of the best records in the league. He should have been in MVP conversation, if we're being honest, for that Chicago Bears team. And he got them to the playoffs where, yeah, they lost on the double doink. But also, again, that offense was not good enough to be a Super Bowl caliber offense. That special teams was not good enough to be a Super Bowl caliber special teams, but that defense was. And you saw what it took, what it brought that Bears organization to, and kind of the peak that it could bring it to. This Packers offense is a lot better than that Bears offense was. This Packers special teams is a lot better than that Bears special teams was. I don't know what people need to see or why they think this is such an overpay when this can guarantee probably a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, if I'm being honest.
This is how I look at it. Great point on bringing up Khalil Mack, because to me, it shows the willingness of the front office to push their chips in right now for the next 2 or 3 years and say, hey, we don't have just a competitive team. We can be an elite team. This brings me back to things that people complained that this same organization wouldn't do for an Aaron Rodgers. That right. I know they tried to get a Khalil Mack, and the Raiders were like, hey, we thought the Packers would go to the playoffs, so we weren't going to get a compensatory pick that was as good. So that's why we traded to the Bears, because we thought, hey, the Bears aren't going to be a playoff team. So that makes a little bit sense. You can't be that too harsh on the Packer organization for that. But there are other moves in the past where we could have had Marshawn Lynch on a 2-year deal, who had played in college with Aaron Rodgers. Nope, they wanted a 1-year deal because he was young and out at the bars a lot.
He didn't play very well in Buffalo compared to what people expected from him.
Exactly. And there are times we could have, Randy Moss wanted to come be a Packer. And, whether or not that was not a good move, that, I remember when Terry Glenn came. So there have been times in the past where the Packers have either not pulled the trigger or have on guys. But to me, it's putting together, we have an elite rush offense and now an elite pass rush defense. How do you control games? You run the ball. And then how do you win games? You put the other team's quarterback on his butt. That's it's simple as that. The teams that can do that, you cut down on the mistakes. Jalen Hurts is not the best passing quarterback in the NFL. He's not going to pick you apart, but if they can run and he's looking at 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, oh man, he's going to light you up. He's going to be able to dump around you. Oh, he can sit like that playoff game. He can sit in the back pocket for 8 seconds and then find someone open in the back. These quarterbacks are at a certain level. They can pass on you if you give them the time. That's probably the only thing that I'm still hoping for the Packers can do is, can this front offensive line look good? But we're going to be able to run the ball against you down your throat, and we're going to be able to pass rush. To me, they have 2/3 of the ball already figured out. Now it's, can we get more opportunities because our defense is stopping the ball? And can Jordan Love be a top 12 quarterback? That's all we need for him to go deep with that type of healthy defense and that type of run game.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, that you don't need the strongest passing offense. You just need a consistent passing offense. You need an offense that is constantly, whenever you do call upon them, going to be ready for it, which is something that I was a little worried about with Jordan Love, especially in the second half of the season last year, is that when they did call upon him, when he had been kind of off a couple of weeks where they were running the ball so much and he was only throwing like 20 times a game at most, and then all of a sudden in the playoffs, they called on him to throw more than that, and he throws 3 interceptions. I mean, that's kind of where like that worries me a little bit. Is he ready for that if they are going to start taking this kind of run first approach when you have such a strong defense? Is he going to be able to step up like a Jalen Hurts in those situations and improve, or does he need that warm up? Does he need to get going earlier in a game? And then what does that mean for the run offense too? I think there are a lot of questions with that honestly, I'm not too worried about when you add a guy like Micah Parsons to this defense. I think that defense is now one of the best, one of the top 5 in the NFL at this point. And Micah Parsons is going to go out there and prove that as long as he stays healthy, as long as Xavier McKinney stays healthy, as long as Edge Cooper stays healthy. Those are all really important factors to this defense. And then also subsequently this offense, when they are reacting to how good this defense can be. Can they step up and be just as good? It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 1057 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We are discussing the Packers trading for Micah Parsons. If you want to get in on the conversation, share your instant reactions to the news for when it happened Thursday afternoon. If you want to talk about kind of what you think this defense is going to look like, what this team is going to look like, let us know. Hit us up on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, that's 414-677-1250, 1250 to get on the show that way. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We are on there, active on there, so you can comment on a segment on there. DM us, whatever you need to ask a question. And then we are also live streaming on YouTube. All the shows are live streaming on YouTube. Pack a Day Radio from 8 to 9 during the week. The Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis from 9 to 11 during the week. And Wisconsin Sports Daily from 2 to 5 with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer. And then finally, the leadoff show before every Brewers game, hosted by Tommy Wirtz. All those will be live streaming on YouTube at The Fan Milwaukee. You can comment on there to get in on any of our shows. We love hearing from you on there. I'm sure our guy Q is going to tune in here to Wisconsin Sports Weekend pretty soon. He is our third co-host at this point.
Q.
He loves breaking in, sharing his thoughts with us, and you can be like Q. Get on the show here today at The Fan Milwaukee on YouTube. When we come back, we wanted to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers a little bit. We feel like they haven't been getting that much love here on the station lately, probably because Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer, which is pretty understandable, but we want to give them a little bit of that love since they had an awesome game last night where they blew out the top team in the American League. Hopefully they can keep that going for the rest of the weekend. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 1057 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Uczen. That's Jack Pembroke. We will be right back. Over Canada. Lose it, baby. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Uczen. That's my guy Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. If you are just tuning in, you missed us talk about Micah Parsons becoming a Green Bay Packer. Some pretty big news happening Thursday night. If you want to get in on that topic, if you want to talk about Micah Parsons, share your initial reactions. Tell us how you think this team is going to look now that he is a part of that defense. If you're excited, not excited about this for some reason, which I don't know why you wouldn't be excited about this.
You don't have a pulse, baby.
I am a Bears fan, and I'm excited about this because it's just like one of the craziest trades I've ever seen in my entire life. So if you're just a football fan, this is pretty nuts, and you should be excited about this if I'm being honest. We are going to move over to the Milwaukee Brewers, though, now in the 920 segment here. The Milwaukee Brewers took down the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, 7-2, and a pretty big beatdown. It was 0-0 for a majority of this game until about the sixth inning, where you saw the Milwaukee Brewers just pop off like crazy. If you look at this roster right now, Jack, and they're playing the best team in the American League in the Toronto Blue Jays, and you have a game like that, despite losing the past couple of series in ways that you didn't really want to, the San Francisco Giants series, didn't really want to lose that because that was over a Euchre weekend. The Arizona Diamondbacks, while they aren't a awful team, they're not the best team, and to tie that series kind of feels like a little bit of a loss there in that situation. What does it mean to beat out a team like the Toronto Blue Jays like this, who are that good in the American League side of things, are one of the hottest teams in baseball, and they play up to that level there? What does that mean for the Brewers move forward here?
To me, you look for two or three things, right? You kind of seem like you're playing down to opponents. So that starts to worry you as we get closer to September and October, especially when now we're just used to getting free burgers every 15 games in a row. You know,
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Right. So people started to feel, and maybe I fell into this trap too, is, oh crap, is this the Brewers of old? Are we doomed to just, collapse at the finish line? Are we the Cubs? Existential crisis like that. But in general, it's telling me they're back on the horse. They are a really good team that it's okay to lose 3 or 4 games during a month. It's okay. We are playing down to some opponents, and that can kind of, like you alluded to, you're dealing with the anniversary of Euchre's death. So there's a lot of emotion going into that series. It's very good that we looked that efficient against a Toronto Blue Jays team that we're probably, if I'm not jinxing us, going to see down the road in fall.
That would be the hopeful. I think this is what a lot of people are looking at as a potential World Series matchup at some point later on. I think you look at these two teams and you say that they probably play pretty similar. I think you look at their rosters, and the Toronto Blue Jays, yes, they have a little bit more power in their bats than the Milwaukee Brewers do. You have guys like Vlad Guerrero and George Springer, who are constantly going to be 20 home run guys plus at least in your lineup. Bo Bichette usually is in that territory if he's having a good season, which this year he's having a pretty good season. Yeah. So especially in the second half here, he's heated up a little bit. I think this is a series that, when I talk about expectations for the Milwaukee Brewers, this is a series that I think matters more than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I know it's Toronto. I know they're in the American League. I know that overall in the standings of the National League Central, or just the National League in general, this doesn't play a big key factor into it. But I think at the same time, you look at a series like this and you say, this is a good little scrimmage to kind of find out where the Milwaukee Brewers are and where they're going to be when they're playing competition like this. All the time in end of September, beginning of October there, you're going to be seeing teams like this on a constant basis. And for some reason, like you said, the Brewers play up to their opponents. They also play down to their opponents. But for a while there, they weren't playing down to their opponents. They were just beating everybody. And I think that we got our hopes up that would continue to happen. But at the same time, at the beginning of the year, when we talk about the Brewers playing down to their opponents, I talked about that as kind of a worry for me, that they can't consistently keep up the same level of play no matter what, no matter how hard they try, that they're always going to even out, and that may be a problem moving forward in the rest of the season. When you talk about the playoffs, you don't really have to worry about that because you're playing all playoff teams. And I think that worried me in the first half of the season because the Brewers weren't as good as they are now. The record didn't keep them into that top of like the NL Central, keep them the top of the National League at that point. And now you're seeing that. And because I'm seeing that, you know what? Yeah, you can lose a couple games to the San Francisco Giants. Yeah, you can lose a couple games to the Diamondbacks, and I'm not going to be as worried because I don't think it's going to even out to an 82, 80, or 81 and 81 record anymore because it just can't. They have a winning record now.
You didn't foresee them having, a sprinter's 200-meter advance on a first place position and home field advantage, which no one saw. But now they can lose, like you said, they can lose some of these off games, but to me, we're starting to turn in the right direction. It's like you said, they're only going to be facing good teams as long as they retain this seed. So now you don't really have to, okay, what's the level they're playing down to if we're playing in October. And to me, it's more important that the pitching looks this healthy going this deep into fall. I don't think we've ever been this deep or this healthy. And another thing, you and I both, to our wildest heart's desires, did not see a Brewers offense looking like this, where doesn't matter the name on the back of the jersey. This guy's coming up and taking an opportunity to either get a run batted in, or some guys are finding not just warning track power, but actually home run power that you didn't have a lot of guys hitting home runs this year on this team.
Andrew Monasterio hit another home run yesterday. He has been on fire since they put him into the starting lineup since Joey Ortiz has gotten hurt. I mean, it is just kind of insane that no matter who steps up to that plate, like you said, there is something good going to happen. And like Andrew Monasterio specifically, we talked about him for the past 2 or 3 years as just Milwaukee Brewers fans that, why is he on this roster? Why does Pat Murphy love him so much?
They know something we don't.
It's because they just understand these players. That's what it is. And I think that when we talk about the front office, when we talk about this coaching staff and why they're so capable of doing this right now, is because they understand the personnel that's on their team. And I talked about this with Sparky on Wisconsin Sports Daily, is that when you are on a team, if you're Craig Counsell and you go to the Chicago Cubs and they say that we are going to give you more money to build a roster here, we're going to give you more opportunities to be a championship team and make the team that you want.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, you say yes to that, but at the same time, that's a lie. The ownership is going to be involved in almost every single decision you make with the more money that they put into that or franchise or organization. They take more account because they want their money to be spent the right way. The benefit of being in a small market like with Mark Atanasio is, yes, you don't have as much money. He's not going to give you as much money, but you know what? He doesn't care what you do with that money then. He knows that you are going to spend that money no matter what, and that if he's not putting extra money into it, then he doesn't have to meddle as much. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Quick metaphor, visually, it's why Bill Belichick is at a college football program right now.
That's exactly it.
He controls the heartbeat, the soul, the backbone of the program. At the end of the day, the buck passes there. He's got way more control and less heartache of, okay, I've got a board room to deal with. I've got, all these shareholders to deal with. The Cubs are a privately owned company. And you kind of look back, their old manager from the Devil Rays, he was a go get him, win one for the Gipper type GM. And it looked by the end of his career there in the Cubs, they had ruined his and sucked out the life of enjoyment of baseball. And I think you kind of see Craig Counsell seeing that side of the coin of, yeah, you do have the money. You do have a great program, one of the top, baseball program franchises, but you also are paying the piper a lot more money too. And you don't have as much control of all the intricacies that Pat Murphy can control. And you can kind of see it. Pat Murphy, this team emulates who he is as a person, and we're scrappy.
That's the best way to put it. They're a scrappy team. And like you said, you have to pay the piper more, and the piper's just breathing down your neck all the time, telling you what to do, telling you that you can't re-sign a Kyle Tucker after you trade for him, because you know what? That's too much money. He's not playing up to the caliber of what the ownership wants. I think that's the kind of the biggest thing here is that Matt Arnold and Pat Murphy know their team. That's why you get situations where you have games like last night where Andrew Monastery has a home run, Andrew Vaughn has a couple RBIs, Isaac Collins has a couple RBIs. Who believed in any of those three dudes prior to this season? Nobody.
No one. Everyone's scratching their head at those moves. Your general fan in the crowd is like, "Oh, come on, Pat, what are you doing here?"
Right.
And not in that language, you know.
Right. It's insane that they're able to turn this around. And then you talked about the pitching staff and how good they've been. I'm sorry, Mitch Nellis. I apologize. I told you that Freddie Peralta was not going to be able to go 6 innings, and then he ended up going 6 innings last night of 1 hit ball, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. He looks phenomenal. He's been one of the best pitchers in all of the MLB, not just in the month of August, but kind of all year. In the month of August, I think he is the best pitcher.
There's 6 or 7 guys on this team that I could say would be an elite pitcher on any other pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. And again, prior to the season, I don't think too many people looked at this Brewers pitching staff and said that.
No.
You didn't see a Freddie Peralta and say, you know what, he's the ace of a rotation. But guess what? He's been the ace of this rotation this year. As much as people want to try to deny it, as much as they say, oh, Brandon Woodruff, since he's gotten back, oh, Jacob Mizorowski.
Oh, it's a patchwork quilt of these guys.
If you look at the whole resume of the season, Freddie Peralta's been the ace. I don't care. You can't convince me otherwise.
No, you're right.
That's how this has played out, and he's been phenomenal. You've seen guys like Chad Patrick come up and have his moments a little bit. Quinn Priester, since being traded, and nobody believed in him. That's why he was on his 3rd organization in 2 seasons and being the MLB. I mean, these are the things that the Milwaukee Brewers just find ways to do all the time, no matter what, without fail. And I think when you watch a series like this against the Toronto Blue Jays and you see them have a game like this again, where you have so much contribution from players that you didn't expect to have contributions from at the beginning of the season, and now you're getting a Jackson Churio back at some point, hopefully in this series, maybe next series, you're going to get a Rhys Hoskins back, who's such a good leader for this squad. Yeah, it brings more questions into how do you run that lineup? What happens to an Isaac Collins? What happens to an Andrew Vaughn? At the same time, who cares, man? You're getting back more talent. This is so much fun to watch. And this Milwaukee Brewers team deserves, and the organization deserves, all the credit that I think people are giving them. And again, this game last night is just the epitome of that. You're seeing it kind of play out and what the future could be in an AL-NL matchup where the Brewers are just out there just dominating. And it is so much fun. And hopefully they can keep that up for the rest of the series. I don't know if they will. Toronto's probably going to come out with a little bit of a different fire in this next game because they probably feel the same way. They're a team that has World Series aspirations, and they think that this is a team they could potentially be seeing in that World Series. We'd want to step up our game, I'd think. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We're talking about the Milwaukee Brewers taking down the Toronto Blue Jays last night, 7-2. And we wanted to ask you, how much does this series mean to you? What are your expectations for the series for the Milwaukee Brewers? What are you expecting from certain players in this series? And depending on what happens in this series, what do you think that means moving forward in the playoffs? Hit us up on the Nicolay Law Fan Talking Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, that's 414-677-1250, 1250 to get on the show that way. Or you can hit us up at the Fan Milwaukee on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on YouTube, where you can comment on there. Jack, I'll start over there. What does this series mean to you?
It's a litmus test for how far we can go in October. It's a direct correlation. This is the type of athleticism, the type of team we're going to come up against if we want to be where we want to be late in October. And it's surprising, but also helpful to see that all the questions that I've had throughout the first third of the season after the All-Star break, it seems that they always have an answer. It's kind of annoying because you're expecting the other foot to drop and be like, oh, this is the Brewers I'm expecting. You're expecting something not positive to happen, and that's a horrible double negative. But you think that we're just going to fall back to earth and that this season of enjoyment and entertainment is going to come to an end early. At every point in every turn in the road, they prove me wrong. So I'm glad that we're getting an opportunity against a team like Toronto, and 7-2 is the type of JV shellacking that they let the varsity crew just go out and beat the crap out of Toronto. So if we can get another, even if it's a close win, if we can win the majority of this series, it just shows me that, wow, we really are made for a deep run.
Right. I think when I look at this series, and I'm with you on that, this is a litmus test of what this team can be. I don't think I'm with you that throughout the second half of this season, I have not once felt like they were going to fall back down to earth, which is weird because I think for the past 15 seasons, it's felt like that to me.
Yeah, I'm a pessimist, so that's my fault.
I get it. And I understand. I think there's a lot of people that are in your same shoes. But what I'm saying is that I have been like that. I have been in that same boat where, like, even in 2018, it felt like no matter what, getting to the NLCS, yes, they made it all the way there. I still didn't feel like they were, like, I was ready for them to just get knocked out of the playoffs. No matter what, no matter when, even when they got to game 7, I was ready for them to just lose it, and then I was going to be disappointed again. It just didn't feel like it was real. This is the first time since like 2011 when I was 10 years old and had still all of this joy and happiness and just hopes for everybody to be great that I loved, that I wanted them to be awesome, be the best, and that it was going to happen. It's the first time since then that I felt like that I felt like that there is no way this team can fall apart. Even when they've lost a couple series in a row or tied a couple series in a row, I haven't been at that point where I'm like, yep, this is where it starts crashing down. No, I'm still very high on this team. I still think they're one of the top World Series contenders in the entire MLB, not just in the National League, in the entire MLB. And there's very little that I think could change my mind about this at this point. I think part of the reason I can see this because I'm watching the Cubs at the same time, and they're first of all, what is nuts is that they're the third best team record-wise in the National League. I don't think people
our
understand that or
division's
recognize
so
that.
good.
The way that the Cubs talk about themselves, the way that Cubs fans talk about the Cubs, you would think they're one of the worst teams in the MLB since the All-Star break, that they've literally fallen off a cliff, and they just haven't. They've been just as good. But the fact that over there, they're having those types of discussions. We're like, oh, great, this is just another season of this. We're like, this is all going to end in disappointment again. And we're not having those discussions in Milwaukee. It just shows that there's a different kind of vibe to this team. And a series like this, a series playing against the Toronto Blue Jays, where it is such a good team. It is the pinnacle of what is the American League at this moment this season because they've been so hot lately, that you look at that and you see a game like this and you go, man, I don't care that they lost to Arizona. I don't care that they dropped a series where they were honoring the great Bob Uecker to the San Francisco Giants. I don't care about all of that because right now I just feel on top of the world. And I think this Brewers team feels that way too.
They're starting to cement my belief, and it's hard to find a lot of flaws. And it's almost, I'm so used to being hurt, Charlie, that now it's exciting. It's like I'm a cat that's right over the water, like, oh, I'm excited, but I've been hurt before. I don't want to get hurt again. But it is reassuring. I've never felt, I think that's what I'm feeling right now is it's like, okay, Jack, they're going to no matter what, they're going to figure it out. And I'm along for the ride, and it's going to be a really exciting fall.
It is. I'm really excited for it as well. And you know what? Hopefully they bring back old school graphics for the playoffs too. Maybe throw a little Lees on there.
Can Bernie please dive into beer again? Make Bernie be able to dive into beer again. That's all I want.
That would be nice. Bring it back a little bit, man. This feels like 1982, so let's make it feel like 1982 with the fans as well.
Throwback to the 80s.
Be all in on this team. Stop thinking that this is going to end. Because it might. But you know what?
I'm all in now.
Fun
I'm all in.
Man.
I'm jumping into the deep end. I'm into the fun end of the end zone. I love it. Thank you, Charlie. I need to just shake it off.
What can I say? I'm an optimist. You may be a pessimist, but I'm an optimist.
I'm a realist, but I'm becoming more of an optimist with the Brewers.
Not an optometrist.
No.
Thank you. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM at 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Uczen. That's Jack Pembroke over there. If you want to get in, let us know your expectations for the Brewers in this series, how much this series means to you against the Toronto Blue Jays. We'd love to hear from you at 414-677-1250, and that's 414-677-1250. Hop on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line. You can also hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on YouTube at The Fan Milwaukee. Comment on there to share your thoughts on this. When we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit of fantasy football, as I know a lot of you guys are having your drafts this weekend prior to the season getting started next week. So we want to hear who are some of your top players that you're looking at, and most importantly, who are the Green Bay Packers you're looking at? That is a beautiful trophy. Just a beautiful one. That's one I think anybody would be.
I may have won the league last year. May have.
Oh,
may
cool
have
guy
just,
over here.
It's cool.
That's fun. That's
cool.
fun. All right.
You too can maybe touch this
One
if
day.
you win this year.
One day. Fingers crossed. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We will be right back. You look to me. How we doing, folks? How we doing? It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Uczen. That's Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. If you're just tuning in, you missed us talk about Micah Parsons being traded to the Green Bay Packers, which Tulio over on YouTube at the Fan Milwaukee, if you want to be like him, says it still feels like a dream. Like, I get it. This is insane. Can't believe Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. And that led me to my next topic here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. If you want to be like Tulio, get in on the show at the Fan Milwaukee on YouTube. You can also get in on the show at the Fan Milwaukee on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere that we are on social media. We are going to respond to you on there. You can also hit us up on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, that's 414-677-1250, 1250. He says, cheers from Brazil. We got listeners in Brazil. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Maybe it's all the Flamingo FC and the teams we've been talking about.
Maybe.
We'll
I don't know.
take
That's
it.
pretty cool. Thank you for listening from Brazil, Tulio. We appreciate that, my man. But we are going to be talking about fantasy football a little bit here, and that's why I wanted to kind of bring up this Packers defense a little bit. I want to talk about the Packers in general going into fantasy football. Again, if you want to get in on the show, 414-677-1250, and let us know what you're planning on during your draft, either today, tomorrow, if you've already had your draft, what moves you made in those drafts there. But going back to the Green Bay Packers, like I said, the defense is somebody that I think people are going to want to pick up now, Jack. I think just kind of first off the bat, the addition of Micah Parsons, are you drafting the Packers defense?
So in the first WSSP draft that I thought you were in, but now Tommy's in, he's got a decent team. I picked up Arizona Cardinals, but anyways, they just play crappy teams for the first 4 weeks. Yeah, I think I saw somewhere that they shot up about 15 or 20% on ESPN fantasy draft boards for people at least picking them up from waivers. So you got to think that they at least jump into a top 5, top 7 scoring slot with just sacks alone that are going to come with Micah Parsons being on the field. I think he's going to cover up a whole multitude of mistakes in the secondary. We're going to get a lot of defensive sacks from him coming there that you won't have to cover wide receivers for as long. I think if you're smart, you're picking up at least in a late round, a big league. Yeah, you could take a flyer on the Packers D to be a surprise defense. Why not?
Yeah, and again, I don't even think it's really a surprise at this point anymore. If you add a Micah Parsons in there, Mina Kimes talked about this Thursday after the Micah Parsons news broke. She put it out there that despite what people are saying, that Packers defense in the second half of the season last year was one of the most solid ones in the entire league. They were able to hold guys or teams to like low passing numbers. Their rush defense was one of the best of the entire season. It was just that they weren't forcing turnovers in the second half of the year, and they weren't getting sacks in the second half of the year, which mixed with an offense that was at points in that second half kind of lackadaisical, kind of basic. They were doing a lot of just kind of normal run schemes.
It looked vanilla. You're right. It looked
pretty vanilla. I think that mixed with that just didn't really turn out to be as exciting as people were hoping for from a first-year Jeff Hafley defense. In year two, this kind of feels like, and I know I keep comparing it to that, but when the Bears got Khalil Mack, that defense took a huge step. They had like doubled, tripled,
revolutionized that Bears defense.
Literally, Eddie Jackson became an All-Pro. Kyle Fuller was an All-Pro that season because Khalil Mack was there.
Old guy Peanut Tillman was still doing crazy stuff.
It was just insane to see that the impact that he had on that defense, just in terms of fantasy. Again, the amount of sacks Khalil Mack had and the amount of turnovers that were forced because he was on the field was just astronomical. And then you saw the next year when teams kind of figured that out, how quickly it fell apart. I think if you're going to jump on a Packers defense in fantasy, this is the year to do it. Do it when people don't know what to expect and when teams are going to make a lot of mistakes. When you have a Micah Parsons coming 90 miles per hour at you that you weren't prepared for prior to this season. I think this is going to be a pretty big upgrade for most teams that are looking for kind of, again, like you said, a surprise defense that isn't really going to be a surprise. If we talk about that offense and what we expect of them going into this season with a new look defense kind of behind them and giving them more opportunities on the field, hopefully, what are in that wide receiver room, a couple names you're looking at, Jack, from the Packers that you think could kind of break out a little bit this year, despite seeing what we've been seeing in the preseason?
I hate to give away nuggets of knowledge to someone who's going to be in my league, but you will be working.
Jack's friends are probably listening too, so they're all going to be listening to this.
Everyone already knows, so we won't talk about what round, but I think Matthew Golden is someone you cannot pass up by a certain point in your draft, whether it's a 10, 8, 12-man league, PPR or half PPR. He reminds me, and I saw someone else Sal Vetri is a guy on Instagram who actually came out of nowhere last 2 years as an Instagram kind of fantasy guy, but he love his stuff, really good content. He's like, hey, this is early on. He's like, I could be wrong, but this could be the next Antonio Brown of fantasy football. And I think the volume's there, the opportunities are there. And that's the first two things you look for in fantasy football is, hey, is my guy going to get thrown to X amount of times a game? And is he going to be in a system that, placates to his skill set. So Matthew Golden is going to be, he's starting in 2 wide receiver sets already. So, he's a starter. He's going to be playing a lot of slot, and he's the X. So they're going to maneuver him around and get him outside in those deep routes. And I see it playing out to be very simple. They're going to use him and Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft as little intermediate routes and speed routes to get a lot of yak, which is great for your fantasy team, but also great for a West Coast system that the Packers want to run. And hey, we've been talking about it. How do you massage your quarterback back into this? Good defense, good run game. That's the recipe I see that you get an 11 or 12 win team with the Packers, and you give Jordan Love that weapon of, hey, you can go to this guy on 3rd and 5 like we weren't able to last year, and you can hit him on a slant. You can hit him on a little Texas out route on a linebacker, a DB, and we just didn't have that consistency, and we're healthy at those positions. So I think you're very dumb to pass up after a 6th, 7th round pick on a Matthew Golden.
Definitely. And I think that when you talk about Matthew Golden and what we've seen from him in the preseason so far, he's been the most consistent player on the field, it feels like. I think that when you're talking about him being in those 2 wide receiver sets with Jaden Reed, that's a name that hasn't been as exciting so far this preseason, mostly because A, he was dropping passes earlier on, and then B, now it has come out that he has a Jones fracture in his left foot, which, if you guys don't know, is kind of like a hairline fracture on the outside of the foot that is really painful to play with, but it's not impossible to play with. There's routes to go where there's non-surgery, surgery routes. This is a guy that I think could be pretty highly affected by that. What are your expectations for Jaden Reed?
I had one in track in high school, just growing. You sometimes get little stress fractures like that. They just sat me down and said, okay, you're going to swim for 4 weeks. So, and that's track, which is something your speed is off your legs.
Yeah.
Pretty important. Wide receiver Jaden Reed. I don't know if you've watched some football for the last 2 or 3 years, but they like to use him a lot, and they like to use him in a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of little inside crosses, a little short, deep crosses. And that's where they're going to be really successful. So to me, it is a little bit disheartening where I'm like, okay, rest him. We can now, with who we have on defense and a good run game, we can get away with the marker for me is always, can your team hold teams under 28 points, right? In the NFL. And if you can do that, you look back every year, the top defenses that get to the NFC title game or an AFC title game, they're holding you under 27 points a game, and they're scoring right a little bit over 28. That's what makes me happy is we were probably hovering around 29, 30 points defensively giving up a game. Now with Micah in there, I think that has to drop down. And that's just going to help guys like Golden get way more opportunities, and Love to get way more opportunities to have the ball in games where we can control the clock.
Right. And I think that's the most important key, is that the defense should help this offense get more touches and be on the field more, which fantasy wise should be a pretty good deal. No matter really if the players are that good or not, the volume should get them points at least to be able to stay on a bench or in your starting lineup.
I got a question for you, because you're a lineman and I trust you. You've been on the line, you've been in the trenches. Are you going after a Tucker Kraft later in rounds? I kind of like him. I kind of feel like they're going to go to him a lot this year. What are you seeing?
So I was going to ask you almost the same thing, basically. Tucker Kraft is a guy that when you compare the tight end room to the wide receiver room for this Green Bay Packers team, I think a lot of people want Matthew Golden to be that guy to get the ball a lot. They want a Jaden Reed to show us what he showed us in the first half of the season last year, not only with the jet sweeps, but also with his ability to make quick cuts on the outside and on the inside of the field. Because in between the numbers last season, the Green Bay Packers struggled more than almost every other team in the NFL. Jordan Love's completion percentage in the middle of the field in that danger zone, so that 10 to 20 yards in the middle of the field where it is highly dangerous to throw the ball because you can get a guy kind of knocked out usually. You mentioned Antonio Brown earlier.
Hospital ball.
Vontaze Burfict put him in the hospital with a pass from Ben Roethlisberger during that game. I think that a Tucker Kraft is going to be key in making sure that you increase that completion percentage in the middle of the field in that danger zone. I think Matt LaFleur understands that. And I think that the fact that Luke Musgrave, now that he's healthy, hopefully he can stay healthy. He can be more of that kind of outside threat for the tight ends. He can be that screen guy that they were using Tucker Kraft in, and then they can use Tucker Kraft in a more traditional way in the middle of the field, kind of the way that the Kansas City Chiefs run to Travis Kelce. They don't have him on the outside a lot. They do a lot of work with him in the middle of the field and have him use his athleticism to kind of break back to the outside. I think Tucker Kraft kind of has that same kind of mentality. And then also I've compared him a lot to like a George Kittle because of his ability to block. And George Kittle's one of the best blocking tight ends I've ever seen play football. I think Tucker Kraft can have that ability to be a blocking threat that can also release on a lot of play action
and
routes.
Sit down in those zones.
Sit in those zones, maybe get to the hashes and kind of sit at the hashes about 15 yards deep.
And play basketball, basically.
Which is what you're going to need him to do if you're going to have this run-first offense with Jordan Love running more play-action passes. Tucker Kraft is going to be a key piece of that play-action game. And because of that, he is a guy I'm looking at. Last season, I bought in on Trey McBride in all my fantasy leagues.
Oh, me
he was
too.
a guy
He's
that
great.
I drafted right away. I felt like he was going to have a breakout season. He ended up having a breakout season because of that, because they were relying on a rookie number 1 wide receiver and a Marvin Harrison Jr., and they needed that kind of safety net in the middle of the field because a lot of their other wide receivers were very outside threats. Rondale Moore was an outside threat. He played well the first couple of weeks and then got hurt. You had some other players on that team that were just more outside players that they needed the Trey McBride in the middle of the field. That's kind of how I feel with this Packers team this season. So because of that, Tucker Kraft, I do expect to kind of have a little bit of a breakout season. If you are having any other ideas for who you want on your fantasy football teams from this Green Bay Packers team, I think Josh Jacobs is easy. Our guy Tulio says, and we still have Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love. Insanity. We might never lose again.
By the way, he is a Flamingo fan. He said,
Awesome.
so maybe,
Perfect.
hey, dude, we love the Brazilian Flamingo fans.
Perfect. But he's right. Yeah, you still have Josh Jacobs. Obviously, I'll take a Josh Jacobs earlier on in the rounds. You have a Jordan Love still. I think that's a guy that could have a lot of really high fantasy upside.
I think Jacobs is a steal. He could be easily in our like top 5 RB in fantasy football this year with how they're going to feed him.
Right. And I think that a lot of those factors, hopefully they can take a next step. Obviously, Josh Jacobs had one of his best seasons of his career last year. But Jordan Love hopefully can feed off of a Josh Jacobs and have one of a next step type of season for him. It doesn't need to be the best season of his career, but it can be another step towards getting to that point. And I think in fantasy, that could be pretty useful off the bench, at least if you're going to go with a Jordan Love. Josh Jacobs obviously is an immediate starter for your team. Go out and grab him if he's going to be available in like the 3rd or 4th round. Easy. Grab him. I don't think he will be.
No,
but
he's mid to late 2nd round. And if you're smart enough to where you have a late 1st round pick, it's nice to get a guy like Ashton Genty and Josh Jacobs, or a Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs. You have 2 of the top 10 running backs right there.
Definitely. It'll be a lot of fun to see where a lot of these guys go. If Dontavian Wicks gets picked in some leagues, if Matthew Golden goes a little higher than some people are expecting.
Jaden Reed a little bit or around Matthew Golden, because you got to think, what if Matthew Golden goes down,
It's all a lot of big questions with this offense, and I think all of it stems from how much we think that defense is going to do. And if we think they're draftable, then what does that mean for the offense, and how many opportunities are they going to get on the field? I think it's all a lot of just things, moving parts now that Micah Parsons is added to that defense. I think that's something that a lot of people didn't think about when you're thinking about fantasy, is that can have a big effect on what happens on offense and which players are going to get the ball more, how many opportunities these offenses are going to get now that you get an impact player like that on defense. I think things change for a lot of people when you do your fantasy football drafts. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. When we come back at the top of the 10 o'clock hour, Ryan Wentland of the Pack the Brew podcast is going to join the show to talk about Micah Parsons and this Packers defense. We can talk about a little bit of fantasy football with him, and then we'll talk about the Milwaukee Brewers a little bit as they take on the Toronto Blue Jays this weekend. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, like I said, but later on today, if you guys wanted more from the Fan, do not worry. Our guy Tommy Wirtz is going to be on at 1 o'clock today to host the leadoff show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook as Milwaukee takes on Toronto in Game 2 after beating them 7-2 last night. He'll run through the lineups with you. He'll let you hear from the manager before and after the game, just after the game today. after yesterday's game. And then he'll talk with guys like Andrew Wagner, Austin Herdina of the Potawatomi Sportsbook, give you everything you need to know about the Milwaukee Brewers as they get set to take on Toronto. It is the leadoff show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, hosted by Tommy Wirtz. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. And we will be right back with Ryan Wentland.
Hit the shower. Grab your coffee. And get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Uczen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week, all before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from 12:50 a.m. and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
How we doing, folks? How we doing? It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 12:50 a.m. and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I am Charlie Uczen. That is Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. And we are getting started on hour 2 of Wisconsin Sports Weekend here. If you missed any of the first hour, we talked about Micah Parsons getting traded to the Green Bay Packers, our initial reactions to that when it happened, some other questions about how that's going to affect the defense. Then we talked about the Milwaukee Brewers a little bit in the segment 2, how they took down the Toronto Blue Jays last night 7-2, behind more contributions from guys like Andrew Monasterio, Isaac Collins, Andrew Vaughn, all the secret heroes of the season so far, all showed out last night. It was a lot of fun to watch that. And then the last segment, we talked about some fantasy football Packers that you may want to draft in your fantasy leagues and what expectations are fantasy-wise for a lot of the players on Green Bay. Now we are going to get into basically all of those same topics with our Wetland over here at YouTube. If you wanted to watch the interview on there, it's at the Fan Milwaukee on YouTube. You can go on there, ask us some questions in the comments that we can ask Ryan over here. Should be a lot of fun. Ryan is with Pack the Brew podcast. He's the co-host over there. You can follow that at Pack the Brew. You can also follow Ryan on Twitter at BrewPack8. Ryan, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. I mean, I'm still pretty fired up about Micah Parsons, if I'm being completely honest. I'm not even a Packers fan, and this is just great football news. It's awesome to see something like this. And I got to break the news on the station on Thursday, so it was a lot of fun. What was your initial reaction to them trading for Micah Parsons?
Well, it was crazy because it happened in the bottom of the 9th inning of the Brewer game, and I'm focused on this, trying to walk it off, and then I see that news, so I'm still kind of focused on the Brewers, but I'm like, I don't even care if they win at this point because we just got Micah Parsons in Green Bay. I mean, this is one of the bigger trades of my lifetime with 25 years. So, I mean, I asked my buddies, I'm like, is this bigger than Dame to the Bucks? And they're like,
oh, easily.
Yeah. And I'm like, they're like, yeah. I'm like, I agree. That's just, I was in disbelief. I had to make sure it was real like 5 separate times.
Definitely. And I think when looking at this trade, I've been comparing it a lot to the Khalil Mack trade. I'm a Bears fan. I don't know if you know that, but sadly, I've been in this situation of just constant sadness. And when they traded for Khalil Mack, it was like this kind of feeling, a euphoria, like this is going to be the moment that it changes. For the Bears, obviously, that didn't happen, and I said that was a lot because they didn't really do anything on their offensive side. Their offensive line, they didn't upgrade at all during that time. Mitch Trubisky was still the quarterback, and it was kind of seemed like he wasn't taking those next steps. But now they had a Super Bowl-ready defense with a not Super Bowl-ready offense and special teams. With the Packers, it feels like that offense is a little bit more polished than what the Bears were at that point. It feels like the special teams is a little bit more polished than what that Bears team was at that point. What are your expectations now that they've traded for Micah Parsons compared to what they were Wednesday night before this?
So if the people who follow me and listen to me for a while, they know I'm a lot of times kind of delusional. I definitely have higher expectations for my teams than usual. So I always believe the Packers especially can go and win the Super Bowl and go and win the North and, do what they got to do in January, of course. But after that news, it's like you see all these betting sites have the Lions, and I've seen, the Lions especially ahead of us, and now I'm seeing the Packers at 1. So now my delusion is correct, right? The Packers should be one of the favorites to win it all, and I mean that is my expectation. It's always my expectations. We play in Titletown, USA, to win a Super Bowl, and now it's even higher.
Ryan, I'm still in shock still. I don't know how Charlie is out of the euphoric stage. To me, I even woke up this morning again and had to just refresh the Ian Rappaport report on X just to make sure I wasn't living in the Matrix. But people are going to talk about what this does for our defense, but we kind of earlier in the show got into how this is going to even open up more opportunities for the offense. And more opportunities for Jordan Love and Jacobs and Golden to go out and win in a 2-minute drill. Versus kind of the last couple of years where we, if it's been over 3rd and 6, we've kind of been worried about being able to get over that hump late in games.
Yeah, that's definitely big. Another part on those, 3rd and short situations on defense is I feel like a lot of times we saw the CBs play 10 yards back and almost give them the first down, and it just drove you insane before they even snapped the football. So if Parsons, or, if it's Gary, if it's Van Ness, whoever can just go and disrupt that play a little bit earlier, I mean, that's obviously, you don't need me to tell you how much of a difference maker that is.
Yeah.
So talking with Ryan Wentland of the Pack the Brew podcast, you can follow that podcast at Pack the Brew on Twitter. You can also follow Ryan at Brew Pack 8. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios. You brought up Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness. That's kind of been the conversation since they've traded for Micah Parsons, that the fact they were able to keep both those guys in that trade and give up a Kenny Clark instead, now it does open up a lot of those opportunities for those guys. How has your expectations for those two players changed now that they've added a Micah Parsons?
Yeah, we can talk about Parsons all day, but those are two guys you got to focus on here, because this is a huge year for Van Ness, especially. I mean, first couple of years didn't really make a ton of noise. We've heard some great stuff in camp. He had, I'd say, a pretty solid preseason also. And now it's like, here, people aren't going to be focused on you. Go and make some noise defensively. So I'm looking for a huge breakout year for Van Ness. And then I could expect maybe even double-digit sack totals from Gary also. So, I mean, it's huge for everyone involved.
How do you think it's going to help the maturity? I know he's already an elite player, even though he's so young, but I think people are overlooking how much it's going to help Edgerrin Cooper having a Micah Parsons on that front seven with him. It's just, to me, it's still impossible to believe we get to have these two players go at it for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, Cooper that's a name that I feel like isn't getting brought up as much as Gary and Van Ness are at this point. But I mean, the year he had last year, and I mean, yeah, he had a great year, but he's still a younger guy, as you just said. So he's just the stuff he can learn from watching Parsons play is going to be huge by itself.
Yeah.
I think with Edgerrin Cooper, the one thing I was worried about, talking with Ryan Wentland of the Pack the Brew podcast, follow him on Twitter at BrewPack8, is that with this trade, when they signed Neiman from Los Angeles, the guy that the Chargers cut, to add to that linebacker room, my automatic assumption was that if they were going to be making a move for a Micah Parsons, that either Quay Walker or an Edgerrin Cooper would be a part of that trade. Were you surprised that Kenny Clark ended up being that name that was involved and not one of these other young players that maybe could add a little more value?
Yeah, big time. That one surprised me. I wasn't expecting. I mean, I have nothing but love for Kenny Clark, and I wish him the best. But for them to go with Kenny Clark over one of these younger guys, I was expecting one of the 10 young wide receivers and then someone like Van Ness or Cooper to be involved here. So I mean, I was shocked, and people are saying that the Packers fleeced Dallas here. And I mean, they did. I can't believe this is what they decided on.
Ryan, I was just to really, put salt into the wound, because I'm a little bit older than you two. I remember us losing lots of games in Dallas with Brett Favre never being able to get over the hump. But I was watching the new Netflix documentary where it was just showing Jerry Jones is just this elite, businessman and making all these deals. And it felt so good to realize, like, oh my God, we reverse fleeced the Herschel Walker trade for all this stuff. Like, we gave up nothing to get everything. And I'm almost like, wait, is there like some joke that's going to come into the end of this? It's almost impossible that this was all they wanted was 2 first rounds and an older. I love Kenny Clark. He's done great for us, but an older, aging out Kenny Clark, that I don't think you could have gotten a cheaper deal.
No, I mean, I'm just shocked, because obviously the Packers, someone says, hey, we're trading Parsons. I assume 31 other teams called about him. I just can't believe this was the best deal. And looking at the Packers, those first round picks are going to be, hopefully 32nd, but at the very least, they're going to be in the late whatever picks of that first round. So I'm in shock. Jerry Jones is just, he's done some good stuff for Dallas, but we're at the point where it's like, buddy, you need
got
to
to
go
put
away.
in a hospice home and
Yeah.
just say, watch
Yeah.
the games from over there, Jerry.
Exactly. He shouldn't be running this team anymore.
No.
Ryan, I wanted to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers a little bit while we have you here. I know you are a big fan of them as well. You were talking about the end of the game on Thursday where Christian Yelich had a little bit of a shot there to go. I know literally nobody paid attention to that last at bat because it was so hard to once Micah Parsons broke. But at the same time, I've talked about with Jack on this show today and then with Sparky during Wisconsin Sports Daily, how sometimes it feels like the Milwaukee Brewers have a tendency to play down to their opponents. And for the first month since the All-Star break, it felt like they just broke that tendency. That was not going to happen again. And then they play the Giants and they play the Diamondbacks. And both those teams, it kind of seems like were harder series than they should have been or needed to be at that point. And then they go and play the Toronto Blue Jays last night and just beat the crap out of the Toronto Blue Jays post sixth inning. What do you think that kind of tendency that the Brewers have? Do you think that'll play at all into the end of the season here as the Cubs are still, like a lot of people seem to forget, the third best team in the National League and are still decently close to the Brewers? Do you think any of these tendencies that are starting to creep back into the Brewers are going to hurt them at all during the second half of the season here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't like seeing them split with the post deadline Diamondbacks are not good. The Giants had the worst record post All-Star break. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong there. They did just go and sweep the Cubs also. So maybe they're better.
High, and they were really hot the first half of the season too. So that's not an awful team.
No, again, I don't think either of those teams are awful. It's not like you're losing to the White Sox or Rockies in those situations. The good news for the Brewers is their schedule's, good, bad news. Their schedule's so tough for September that, like, hey, if you play with these teams, play down to their competition or whatever, they're good teams. So, there's not many more series left where it's like, are you kidding me? We lost a series to that team. So it's not, I wouldn't say I'm too worried about it, but the Cubs, people forget how good the Cubs still are, right? I like to trash the Cubs more than anybody, but that's a great baseball team at the end of the day who I still haven't celebrated a division title, right? This division's not over by any means. Still 6.5 games. You never know. The Brewers could fall into a slump. The Cubs could do exactly what the Brewers just did. We know they're capable of that.
Don't put that devil on us, Ryan. Don't put that devil on us.
As we look at this Milwaukee Brewers team as currently constructed, you have Joey Ortiz out for a little bit. Jackson Chourio, hopefully, from what we heard from Tim Dillard yesterday and Andrew Wagner yesterday on Wisconsin Sports Daily, Jackson Chourio, there's a shot he could be back for this game today, or at least the next series. If it's not going to be within this series, Rhys Hoskins is coming back here. What are your expectations for the lineup and how that's going to change getting those guys back? And then guys like Andrew Monasterio, Andrew Vaughn, Isaac Collins, who have been so good since they've gotten starting opportunities. How do you see their playing time change moving forward here too, as guys get healthy?
Yeah, this is a good problem to have, I would say, right? At first base, especially Vaughn, the numbers, if you just look at stats, have been slowing down. He just have 3 hits last night. So not someone I'm concerned about at all. When he's up to the plate, I'm just like, oh, nice. Vaughn's up, right? I feel just as good if anybody else is in this lineup as him. So it's going to be tough. I don't think you can just throw him to the bench and put Hoskins at first. I'm more than okay having Hoskins coming off this bench. If you have someone like Rhys Hoskins for a late pinch hit situation where you need a bomb, yes, please. There's not going to be many better options consistently off the bench than a Rhys Hoskins. Collins is not someone I'm concerned about losing any playing time. He should be the NL Rookie of the Year. I know Cade Horton and Drake Baldwin have some good arguments, but Collins is going to be my pick. He's safely in left field. Monasterio, he's making it tough though. I think Joey's going to get his job back, but with the way Monasterio's playing, he's definitely making an argument to stay in that lineup a lot more.
Did you have any expectations for Andrew Monasterio to do that once he's been in this lineup for the past 2 weeks to here now and it's just been on fire?
Not even a little bit. And this is the great guy, right? But the numbers weren't there. He plays once a week. I'm like, oh gosh, we're losing Joey. This is huge. And then Monasterio's like, oh yeah, I'm Barry Bonds, by the way. We're more than okay with me in the lineup. So
there's something in the water.
I don't know. I know a certain fan base likes to say we cheat or devil magic or this or that, but it's you see these guys play like this. It's just funny. It shows how great Milwaukee is.
Well, and you have a performance from a guy like Freddie Peralta on the mound
Mhm.
last night, who has been the ace of this team so far this season. Again, I know people want to say Woodruff. I know people want to say Miz when they're healthy. At the same time, if you look at the resume of this season, Freddie Peralta has been the best pitcher on this team because he's pitched the longest and has had just consistency, which is something you haven't seen from him. As we get into the playoffs here, Ryan Wentland of the Pack the Brew podcast, follow him on Twitter at BrewPack8. So we get into the playoffs here, you're going to have to shorten that rotation down a little bit. Some guys may have to make some bullpen adjustments here, move over there. How do you expect the starting rotation and the bullpen to look going into the playoffs?
Yeah, this is the toughest question I have right now for this team. And it's a good question to have because I've thrown out multiple times. I want Woody starting game one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, when Miz was on top of the baseball world, I'm like, I wouldn't hate seeing him. But you look at what Freddie does, right? I mean, this guy should be a Cy Young finalist. He's not going to win over Paul Skeens. No one's saying he should, but he should be a top 3 finalist for the Cy Young right now. And again, Vegas says the same as me, so this is not a bias pick. So you're looking at Freddie. Yeah, the pitch count gets up there, but if he's able to give you a 5-6 shutout and throw, I don't care if he throws 100 pitches, right? Yeah. In October, especially, your guys aren't going to go and pitch 7-8 scoreless. They don't need to, right? I mean, it's just a completely different ball game. So with how consistent Freddie has been, I think I would give him the ball right now, but nothing for me is set in stone. I have to see how this final month plays out. And then I would probably put Woody as my number 2 at this point.
All right, that's
I'm with Ryan on that. Ryan's right on the ball.
Ryan, what do you guys got coming out on Pack the Brew? What are you guys doing, working on personally? I know it's gonna be a lot of Micah Parsons, I'm assuming, here for at least a couple more days. What do you guys got coming out over there?
Yeah, on Pack the Brew, we just got an amazing interview done. We got one with Isaiah Barquette, who was I don't want to get this wrong right here, Giants 10th rounder of this past draft. And then we just got one done last night that'll be out next week with Connor O'Neill, a Dodgers 9th round draft pick, excuse me. And we also got one last month with Jacob Morrison. So the Brewer fans who only care about the Brewers farm, third round draft pick. This guy's insane. He's like a Jacob Mizrowski type. So definitely would go and check that one out.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ryan. Have a great rest of your weekend. Go Brewers, go Pack.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Go Brewers.
Always. Have a good one, Ryan.
Thanks, all right, there he is, Ryan Wentland of Pack the Brew podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at BrewPack8. You can follow their podcast at Pack the Brew. It's a great show, definitely worth checking out. I'm a huge fan of Ryan's. He's come on the show a couple times now. A lot of fun to talk with him and hear that insight from, again, just more people that are in on this situation, know the Micah Parsons situation and what it means to Packers fans all around. It's so cool to hear just the excitement that everybody has for it. And then also for the Brewers too, man. It just is a really positive time to be a Wisconsin sports fan.
It must be like Mudville in Dallas, because in the same calendar year, you get rid of your 2 probably biggest superstars in the sports world, and the rich get richer. Exactly. I hate to rub it in, Charlie, but we are privileged, as they say.
Kyle Brandt said on Good Morning Football yesterday. Yep, you guys are very privileged, and I guess I'm privileged to be talking about that than Chicago sports right now.
Privileged to be in my presence as a Packer fan and owner.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. There you go. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. When we come back, it'll be time for Mount Pixmore, where we did all right last week when Tommy filled in for Jack. He's no Wisconsin Warlock, so he couldn't get everything right. I'm still working on getting there as well. So we're still working on this quest for 4. Hopefully we can get something going this week on the mountain. Like I said, it is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back into Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Uczen. That is Jack Pembroke on the other side of the screen there. If you guys are just tuning in, you missed us talk with Ryan Wentland of Pack the Brew podcast. He was awesome as always. Always a great talk. We talked about Micah Parsons. We talked about the Milwaukee Brewers a little bit and what all of these big changes that are happening for these teams, including for the Packers, when you add a guy like Micah Parsons, what that means for the offense, what
Big
that means
changes, baby.
What that means for other players on that team, man. It is always a big deal to talk about that. So thank you very much to Ryan for hopping on Wisconsin Sports Weekend with Jack and I. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at BrewPack8 or follow his podcast and follow his podcast. You should follow both of them because they're both awesome. Follow his podcast at Pack the Brew on Twitter. Now that we are back here with Jack, it means it is time for Mount Pixmore, as always. We do this every Saturday at 10:20. Mount Pixmore, if you guys are unfamiliar with what it is, it's where Jack and I each go through the sports world, go over to Prize Picks, and we pick two different players with two different props each week in order to build up this mountain. If we get a player right that week, when we come back and check it the next weekend, if that player's right, he stays on the mountain or that prop stays on the mountain. If it is wrong, we have to trash it completely and come up with something new to put into that spot there. So last week, if we take a look at how Tommy and I did when Tommy filled in for Jack, Tommy's not as polished in this as
That's okay. He's got to knock the dust off. There's weeks we have bad weeks.
Yeah, exactly. I have bad weeks like every. I think I've only had like 2 good weeks where I've nailed it. Jack's been right more than I am usually.
Don't even put that into the air. We're getting 4 this week for you.
I'm hoping it'll like even out. Maybe I'm like doing a reverse jinx or something.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
If we take a look at Tommy's picks from last week, he had Izzy Abanikanda for Green Bay with more than 18.5 rushing yards. Izzy only ended with 9 on 6 rushes, so not really a strong performance from him there, which also resulted in him, unfortunately, being cut from the Packers, but re-signed to their practice squad, so he's getting an opportunity there. So kind of an unfortunate game there. He was a player that I think a lot of people were following for Green Bay in this offseason or preseason. Mm-hmm. He's been a lot of fun. They did a couple of interviews with him with the Packers. He was a player that I think a lot of people were rooting for, so kind of unfortunate to see that, but he did not hit his 18.5 rushing yards from last week. But Ollie Gordon over in Miami, Tommy had him with more than 29.5 rushing yards. He ended that game with 43, ended up having a pretty good game.
Nice.
Devon Achane, Jalen Wright are both the starting running backs for Miami. Both of them have been dealing with injuries, which is something you've seen pretty commonly with both those guys. So I think Ollie Gordon is somebody you should be watching if you're a fantasy football player, if you're a daily fantasy player, like we are doing on Prize Picks here. If you're in one of those situations, I think that is the name you should definitely be watching to have at least a pretty big game in week 1, just the way that Miami used their running backs as well. On my side of the mountain, I went with a guy. I stuck with the wrong name. I should have gone with my guy Stetson Bennett, but I stuck with Teddy Two Gloves because I wanted Teddy Two Gloves to get the vibes too, because Stetson Bennett had like 285 passing yards last week. So I was like, you know what, Teddy Two Gloves is going to feel, and then Teddy Two Gloves did not play. He got 0, which I think technically means that it like gets canceled out, but I'm doing it as a loss. I had him with more than 69.5 passing yards. Thought maybe he'd start this game and then they'd give like Kyle Trask and whoever the hell else they have in Tampa Bay down there an opportunity. No, they didn't even go to Teddy Bridgewater. They didn't even put him in the game. He didn't even get a Malik Willis type situation with Seattle. No, did not play at all. He had 0 passing yards. So he's off the mound. Kind of sad. I wanted Teddy Two Gloves to be a hit again. And my second pick was Sam Hartman with more than 91.5 passing yards for Washington. He ended that game with 114. That is another guy that was a casualty of the cut time, the cut deadline in the NFL. It's kind of unfortunate for that. He was a guy that I think a lot of people had some hopes for. He played well in this game, I guess not well enough to stick with Washington in that sense. If we move over to this weekend's mountain, where Jack takes it back over a little bit here. Jack, who were your 2 picks on the mountain this week?
So I like this guy. His cousin is Geno Smith. You might have heard of him. But this guy, even Geno Smith's mother admits, is the better football player in the family. Jeremiah Smith is the truth, the light. We all should come to the cult of Jeremiah Smith and worship how good this guy is as a wide receiver. But I'm taking more then 0.5 rush plus reception touchdowns. So to me, how I'm interpreting that, and I think I'm correct, is that Prize Picks is telling me he just has to get one of those to have that be a dub in our column. The next one I'm going to go with is we like rushing yards. We also like quarterbacks on this show. We like quarterbacks that can run and get us wins on the Prize Picks. Dak Prescott for more than 7.5 rush yards.
Okay.
Do you think that happens?
I think so.
I think
that's a fun one. I wasn't expecting that to be like, that seems like a low number, honestly. That's like one good rush, one sneak out of the pocket.
No Micah. They're going to have to be throwing, be a little bit, down in the count and on the points up on the scoreboard. He's going to have to roll out on some, naked bootleg and get maybe, 9 or 10 yards for a first down, and then Jack will be happy.
All right. I like it. I like that one. Jeremiah Smith, I think, is a pretty easy one. I know they are playing the number 1 team in the country in that game, and they are the number 3 team in the country.
Expect a track meet, expect fireworks, because, man, I think the Buckeyes defense is coming to play.
I think this is one, though, with Jeremiah Smith that you're going to be sweating a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen until the end of the game.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be trying to double team him early on in the game. I think it's going to be a situation where all focus is going to be on him, especially with OSU having a younger quarterback in that situation, somebody that they're not really as confident in, whereas like Texas is playing with Arch Manning. And I think that is something that you have to be pretty confident in that situation, because they put a lot of eggs in that basket.
Yeah, he's very good.
They basically told Quinn Ewers to get out of here, get lost, because we wanted to give him the opportunity. So I think this, like you said, it could be a track meet, but I also think you could see a lot of mistakes happen for these offenses that people aren't expecting.
Who's home?
Texas is home.
Ooh, that does play a role into how I feel about a lot of things. But hey, I'm still riding with the Buckeyes. Big Ten, baby.
All right, we'll see what happens. And Dak Prescott, you know what? I'm with you on that. I think 7.5 is pretty easy. Again, getting just outside the pocket on one should be easy enough. If we head over to my side of the mountain, I don't know if many people know this. I think I've said it on this show a couple of times. I am a Miami fan. I love Miami ever since I watched the U documentaries on ESPN, the 30 for 30s about them. I was just like, that was my dream to play for them. And then I was not good enough to play for them. So I could not go there. I could go there, but then I wanted to be playing football. I wanted to play football.
You could in NCAA football 26.
Exactly. I'd stick myself on that team. I may have to do that. But I am still a fan of that team. I still love watching them play, even though they break my heart every year. Last season, they had the future number 1 overall pick Cam Ward at quarterback. This year, they got transfer quarterback Carson Beck, who's supposedly one of the best quarterbacks in the country. We'll see what happens.
Sorry.
You okay over there?
Yeah, I'm fine now. I'm fine now. Sorry.
You okay?
Sorry. Carson Beck.
He supposedly is supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. We'll see what happens. I think the Miami has been on this route before where they've gone and tried to get a top transfer quarterback. And then you get situations like Tate Martell where he never plays for that team. At least Carson Beck has playing experience. At least he's played for one of the best teams in the country year in, year out in Georgia. I think he has a big chance to make some noise with Miami. Only problem is they're playing Notre Dame in that first game.
He'll look good in the ACC. He will not look great against a Notre Dame defense that is coming off the year that they had last year.
And if you wanted to hear the Miami to Notre Dame game and the pregame, tomorrow we will be hosting the pregame show. I believe that starts at 5:30 because the game starts at 6:30. So stay tuned for that if you want to hear the game. Notre Dame football right here on the Fan for the whole entire season. Should be a lot of fun if you guys wanted to keep up with one of the top teams in the country. We got it here for you on the Fan. If we head over to my other, I didn't even tell you guys what I thought Carson Beck was going to do.
Let's hear it.
More than 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think that should be pretty easy. I think 2 in this game should be pretty reasonable. Even if it is going to be a hard fought game in that situation. Again, that's Carson Beck with more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. And then I wanted to go back to the NFL in honor of Sam Hartman, who hit for me last week, but now is no longer going to be playing football for this Washington team. I went with the Washington starter in Jaden Daniels with more than 225.5 passing yards. They're playing New York, which I think should be a pretty easy game. But that also worries me. There's 2 things about this one that I'm not as confident about. Is one, that if Washington gets up early, they're just not going to be throwing the ball. They're going to run the rock. Which is like, if he ends with 195 passing yards, isn't unreasonable if they are going to be running the ball a little bit more. And then 2, New York is going to have one of the best pass rushing trios, honestly, in the entire NFL. And I don't think people are really kind of giving that enough credit when you draft a guy like Abdul Carter, when you already have a Brian Burns on that field.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau is still on this team. I mean, that's a pretty nasty trio that you're
another
going
Penn State pass rusher. Yeah,
exactly. You're going to have a lot of players here that are going to be hard to block. So I think this game may end up being a little bit closer than people are giving it credit for. And because of that, maybe Jaden Daniels doesn't have as much time to throw. Maybe he has to use his legs a little bit more than he has to use his arm. Something I'm a little worried about, but I needed to. For Sam Hartman.
Yeah, we're doing it for the Commanders.
I'm sure him and Jaden were friends.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I think most
Commandants.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I'm cheering for that. So on my side of the mountain, I have Carson Beck with more than 1.5 passing touchdowns and Jaden Daniels with more than 225.5 passing yards. On Jack's side of the mountain, he has Jeremiah Smith with more than half a rushing and receiving touchdown and Dak Prescott with more than 7.5 rushing yards. Tell us if you think we got something right, if you think we got something wrong, if you wanted to go with your own mountain, we want to hear that too. Let us know at the Fan Milwaukee on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on YouTube, where we are currently live streaming. You see Jack's beautiful face over there. He looks very terrified now. Oh, now he's in a box. He's back to mime Jack, as always. It is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live from the 12:50 a.m. and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. When we come back, it'll be time to crawl.
Did we miss anything during the show? Maybe we didn't. It's time for the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl with Charlie Uczen and Tommy Wirtz.
You folks know what that music means. It is time for the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl, hosted by myself and Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. God, I get so hyped every time the Irish music comes on. I get fired.
I'm ready for a beer.
Exactly. That's what the picture from the music that I use is a nice big mug of beer. That gets me thirsty every time. I'm going to work right after this, so
You're going to the
I
brewery.
might have to have a pint.
Have a good IPA on me.
I will. No, we got an Irish stout.
Ooh, wow. Okay, send me a pic.
That might be pretty good. Be
Okay.
pretty good this time. If you guys are brand new to the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl, here on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Don't worry, I'll talk you through it real quick. It's where me and Jack go back and forth, share some of the biggest stories that we heard this week through the sports world. Sometimes not even the sports world. Sometimes a little bit of science in there. Sometimes a little bit of history.
We got some science today.
All right, I'm down for it. If you guys want to share something that you think we may have missed throughout the sports world, we'd love to talk about it with you as well. You can hit us up on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk text line, 414-677-1250. And that's 414-677-1250, 1250. But we go back and forth, share some of the biggest things we have until we run out of showtime here. And then we're all done. Then you guys don't get to hear us anymore. But don't worry. You can hear us after the show at 1 o'clock, not us specifically, but the fans specifically, at 1 o'clock, where Tommy Wirtz is going to be live here with the leadoff show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. He'll run you through everything from after the game last night, give you a rundown of what happened there. Also, let you hear sounds from players, from the manager, Pat Murphy, from experts like Andrew Wagner and Austin Herdina of the Potawatomi Sportsbook. You'll hear all of that there on the leadoff show 1 hour before every single Brewers game. It is the leadoff show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook, hosted by Tommy Wirtz. Let's start off here on the pub crawl with some kind of, I guess, fun news. We were talking about how it's so much fun to watch every Wisconsin sports team all the time lately. It just feels like it's fun time
So
to be a
much
Wisconsin
fun.
sports fan.
So
Well,
much
no,
fun.
not all the time, because the Wisconsin Badgers, yes, they won. That's Thursday night. That was really
Yay.
cool. It was not a fun game to watch by any
No.
means, if I'm being honest. If anybody had their eyes on the game, the offensive line did not look very good. The run game could not get anything going. Wide receiver room doesn't look like it's going to be anything spectacular once again. But there were a few bright spots in their 17-0 win over Miami, Ohio, including the front seven on defense, who looked really solid. Looks like it was going to be a group that's going to be hard to get past. And then also their starting safety, Preston Zachman, had 24 coverage snaps, allowed 0 catches on 3 total targets, had 2 interceptions, and a 92.3 coverage grade for the Wisconsin Badgers against Miami, Ohio. That's a huge bright spot there for that defense and this team. The quarterback play didn't look that bad.
You can only play the opponents on the schedule, Charlie.
Right, exactly. You can only do so much. So the Wisconsin Badgers take down Miami, Ohio 17-0 Thursday night. Again, that was kind of overshadowed by Micah Parsons getting traded to the Packers, but still,
A little bit.
a win is a win, Jack. We'll take
We'll
the first
take it.
win of the season.
Those mighty Red Hawks came
Uh-huh.
into town.
Couldn't do anything,
No.
baby.
Yay, MAC conference.
What do you got up first on the pub crawl, Jack?
So we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Remember the kid from the Jersey area that was suspended for a Little League bat flip on a home run and then reinstated for the game to get into the World Series? That bat has sold for $10K of cold hard cash on eBay. Wow.
Are you kidding me?
And you know, the sad part is that kid will not put any of that money towards college or, you know, a future business or something. You know, he's going out buying some new gloves and a new bat.
Hey, man, I would too if I was
Fair
a
enougt.
little leaguer, man.
Fair
You
enough.
got to get a new bat now, too. So.
At 14 years old, I would have bought a lot of cool Jordans and some jerseys with 10K.
Me and my friends would have bought a lot of Wendy's, man. That's
A lot of
I know.
Wendy's.
That's pretty cool. I guess good for him that he's getting that hype. A little weird that somebody's buying a little kid's bat just because he got
It's questionable.
Yeah,
Questionable.
a little questionable. All right, next up on the pub crawl here, I wanted to head over to Euro basketball, where guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo are playing right now nationally for his hometown of Greece, or home state of Greece. But his, I guess, friend, I think he coaches the Greek national team as well. But Ergin Ataman, a guy that we heard from last season as well when Giannis was playing over in Greece, he was talking crazy over there as well, says that NBA champions shouldn't be considered world champions, that most EuroLeague teams could beat NBA teams. This is the quote he had. If you took out one star player from these NBA teams, I believe that many EuroLeague teams can beat the NBA teams. Listen, I believe that 2 years or 3 years ago in the preseason, there were many games between the EuroLeague teams and NBA teams. If I'm not wrong, 70 or 80% of the games the EuroLeague teams won. There's no big difference between the NBA teams and between the EuroLeague teams. With all due respect with the NBA, they have many star players. They are really star players like LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and most of them, if you took out one of them, a lot of EuroLeague teams would win.
I think in a 7-game series, knowing how the game is different there and the ability as a team to move the ball, play team defense, yeah, you definitely in a 7-game series, there got teams from the Italian league, the Spanish league, the Israeli league. I think it's not as the parity wouldn't be as many teams, but there are 2 to 4 teams at the top of their brackets that could play well in a 7-game series against maybe not the top 2 or 3 teams in the NBA, but yeah, the middling teams, like the Sixers could get beat by some European teams. The Orlando Magic on an off day and an off series, I think, could get beat. Now, would they lose a 7-game series? Maybe. We'd have to see. I think pride comes into play and people kick it into gear. But yeah, I think that the EuroLeague plays better as a team brand of basketball than even the NBA does at this point.
Well, and I think my one problem or a couple problems with what Ataman was saying in this situation is that he said if you take out the star player on some of these teams, no, like every NBA team has at least one star player at
There's
this point.
2 or 3 star elite
Like,
players.
Well, but like I think like the Utah Jazz don't have a star player. Even actually, Lauri Markkanen's an all-star caliber player.
Yeah.
He's been an all-star.
Big disc
game.
golfer too.
You know what? They have a star player. I think the Brooklyn Nets may be the only team that I can think of that does not have a star player at this point in the NBA. So you're talking about a good third of the league right there that is considered a star player, at least an all-star caliber player, or at least an above average player. In the EuroLeague, how many of those players do you have? Yes, you can take those players off those NBA teams and it might be similar, but then you're taking off like 60 total players from the league. That's nuts to me.
You can't do, it can't reciprocate it because you can't take someone off the Euro team because then that wouldn't even, it wouldn't have a chance.
Then it'd be worse. You take the best player off the Euro team, then it'd be much worse. And then the other thing is he talks about how they played these teams in the preseason and how that like in the preseason we were able to hold our own and we'd beat some of these teams.
I was thinking Euro teams play a lot harder in a preseason game than the NBA guys
they're still working on their sets and their packages that they're going to be running out.
Half those guys are looking at the clock going, oh, it's not February yet. I don't even have to play basketball.
Like,
so
Euro basketball should be more respected than I think it is, especially with how many players are starting to come over to the NBA. But that's the thing. Those players are still coming to the NBA, dude. They still want the higher competition, the more money that's involved on the NBA side of things. I think that on itself, you could probably win a few games if you put a couple of EuroLeagues in teams into the NBA. How many of those teams are making the playoffs? How many of those teams, like you said before, are winning a 7-game series most of the time?
It's like a smaller football team coming and saying, well, we could win 1 or 2 games in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Wisconsin's going to win 1 to 2 games in the Big Ten this year.
Could you survive a Big Ten schedule, though, and still make it to – no, a lot of those smaller teams can't.
This is legitimately Wisconsin in the Big Ten. If you were to put the EuroLeague into the NBA, it'd be the equivalent of that where, you know what, you have solid players that are talented, that deserve to be playing basketball as their career, but you are not Ohio State.
You're talking an over-under of 4 wins in the Big Ten.
It's insane. That's what he's talking about here, and he's pretending like, no, this can be completely even. That's insane. No. Jack, what do you got up next?
So we're going with some science because I've been gone, and we need to, we need to science it up a bit. The French have developed a rocket engine that runs purely on plasma, no fuel, and it looks like a huge lightsaber. It was bright purple, so Samuel L. Jackson will love that. But essentially, they are smashing atoms, and the byproduct you get is plasma, and they are able to generate, I think, 3 times the power of an F-15 jet-fueled engine.
All right.
So, we're not using any jet fuel anymore. Just plasma, baby. Plasma ray guns coming out in a couple of years, I guess.
All right, pretty cool. I have been seeing this one guy on TikTok, too. I don't know if you're on TikTok all that
I
often,
need to get on.
But this one guy has been turning, like, plastic waste, like
Oh, I
plastic,
watched him on,
and, like,
on Facebook. Yeah,
melting it down.
plastiline.
Yep.
Plastiline,
turning
baby.
it into gasoline. It's really cool. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to see that there's these alternatives being come up with and at least tested. It's a lot of fun. That's really awesome. We head back to the sports world, though. We're going to talk about some college football here. I mentioned earlier, you got Notre Dame taking on Miami, which is a top 10 matchup this weekend. You also have Ohio State taking on Texas, which is number 1 Texas versus number 3 Ohio State.
I'm watching that.
It's going to be insane. There's a third top 10 matchup happening this weekend. That's going to be really fun to watch. You're going to have number 4 Clemson taking on number 7 LSU. That is going to be a brawl out there in Death Valley. Jack, what is one game that you're most excited for? Not just out of those 3, but maybe out of all of college football. Maybe it is one of those 3, but out of all college football.
So we'll go with the first game I'm really pumped about is the one you just discussed, Ohio State coming up against Texas. I just think that's a game you're going to see those teams meet each other again in a football series.
And that starts in about 7 minutes. By the way.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited. I'm also excited to see and it's one ranked team and one unranked team, but FSU Alabama. I want to see, does Florida State bounce back after a couple of years of the what ifs of, oh, we should have been in? Do they come back from that season and prove people like me who think they're fakers wrong? Or is Alabama, I feel like they've plateaued. Is Alabama, are we about to see Alabama really get back on their feet, or are they fakers too? So I'm interested to see that game.
Be a lot of fun. Some other big games that you guys may want to check out. Utah at UCLA should be a fun matchup. Utah is a team that I think is underrated a lot of the time. You got New Mexico at number 14 Michigan, which could be a better game than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. Keep going through just the day here, like we mentioned. You got teams like Penn State going to be playing. They're playing Nevada, so that's not really going to be very
those
much.
Nittany Lions are going to kill the Wolfpack.
Just in case you wanted to watch a little bit, there are a lot of great games happening this weekend. Should be a lot of fun in college football. Jack, what do you got up next on the Pub Crawl?
We're following a little bit of college football. This is as Americana to me as the Saturday Evening Post. Lee Corso says goodbye to college football. If you grew up at any era of college football, you probably have witnessed this man put on funny hats and wave to the crowd, and all you see is elation. I was lucky enough to be at 2 colleges where College Game Day came. One was James Madison University in Virginia. Got to say hi to Desmond Howard because he saw me wearing a Packers jersey. But Lee Corso is as Campbell's soup and grilled cheese to Saturday mornings as anything with college football. And it's going to be hard not having him there. I get that he's old and he hasn't been himself, but it's the end of an era, and it's always kind of sad to see a chapter of someone who loved college football so much kind of be closed.
Definitely. And like you said, huge part of a lot of people's viewing experience of college football. It seems like they were testing out last season that Pat McAfee was going to take over that role, and now he's fully taking over that role this season. My one advice to Pat McAfee, and I know he's not listening, don't do Lee Corso's thing. Do your own thing.
Yeah,
Come
do
up
your
with
own
your
thing.
own stuff.
Yeah.
I think what Lee Corso did and brought to the table
That's
was
Lee
so
Corso.
unique and so him that, like, if you try to continue that, I just feel like it doesn't work the same. I think Pat McAfee has a really great personality. I think he's out there and can really get the best out of a lot of interviews that he does.
Keep giving his energy because he's got great energy.
Do your own thing. Don't try to be Lee Corso. Do your own thing. Could be really cool. Last up on the Pub Crawl here, I wanted to head over to staying, I guess, on ESPN, but the basketball side of things. Doris Burke has been a longtime part of that broadcast team, that number 1 broadcast team. For the past few years, she has been on the finals coverage squad and has been, again, one of the key pieces of that final coverage team. ESPN has made the decision to demote Doris Burke, though, according to Andrew Marchand. ABC/ESPN has demoted Hall of Famer Doris Burke from its NBA Finals team and promoted longtime network commentator Tim Legler to its number 1 team. Sources briefed on the decision told The Athletic. Legler will pair with longtime lead play-by-play Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson on the finals broadcast. Jack, is that something that you were
I don't mind Legler.
About, sad about? What was your opinion?
A little sad. Doris is really good. Doris probably knows more than a lot of people, and I've become accustomed to she's someone on ESPN that I still respect and listen to. It might have been a money thing. That's probably what I think happened.
Just quick sidebar back to college football over on YouTube. Cheddarhead says, I just bet my rent money on Texas, feeling great about it. Good luck, buddy. I would not choose to do that myself, but you know what? I'm
Famous last words. I'm feeling great about it.
I'm cheering for Texas now too. For my guy
Ohio
Cheddar.
State, Cheddar.
For my guy Cheddar over here. I'm cheering for Texas.
Second half, take some bets on the Buckeyes, Cheddar. Save your rent money.
Jack, what do you have up here to close the pub crawl?
So we'll bring it back to European football. If you don't know, the FA Cup's been going around. That is their version of March Madness, where teams from like Sunday League teams can play the Premiership teams. And Grimsby Town, a team that's like Division 5, Division 6, not only showed up and won a home game against Man U and knocked them out, they embarrassed them.
Ooh.
Embarrassed them to the point where this is one of the richest clubs in the world. Their team captain and their manager are pushing the little magnets on the board, yelling at each other during mid-game, and that's when you know your team's really lost it. When you need to go to the chalkboard and write up plays for Grimsby Town FC. And good for them. I have a good friend who owns some bars on Brady named Daryl Towers, who is from Grimsby Town. And this man has been living his childhood dream that they beat Man United. So good on Grimsby Town FC. Up Grimsby Town.
Go Grimsby Town, man. That's awesome. You know, we got listeners from talking about Flamengo FC.
Yeah.
I want some Grimsby Town listeners, man. Get on here, cheer for them. That's one of our new teams.
We're finding new Packer fans through football.
I think we need like jerseys of a Flamengo.
Oh,
FC
I got
jersey
you.
over here.
I'll start bringing them
FC
in.
jersey over here. All right, these are going to be our new favorite teams. That will do it for the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, which also means it'll do it for Wisconsin Sports Weekend today as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody commenting on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We love hearing from you guys. We love that you're a part of this show and want you to continue to be a part of this show because it's just so much fun when you are. We will be on next week, once again, same time, same place, 9 to 11, right here on The Fan. Again, be sure to check out the leadoff show starting at 1 o'clock today here on The Fan with Tommy Wirtz. Will be a lot of fun, and nobody gives you Brewers news faster, better than he does on the leadoff show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I am Charlie Uczen. That is Jack Pembroke over there, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a great rest of your day.